Good afternoon. We're talking in intermediate accounting, Accounting 222, about our midterm that's coming up this week. The nature of the test is that it's open book, open notes. So it does have to be authenticated, and that's another way of saying proctored. But I'm using the term authenticated to indicate that I believe it's very important to authenticate who's taken the class at some point. The only way I can think of doing that right now, because TCC doesn't have like an authentication program. So the only way I can see to do that is to actually ask you to have the test proctored. So different ways you can go about proctoring are that you can go to any TCC testing center. All four of them have your names. If you live out of the area, you could contact a community college or something in the area that you're in, or could ask for my help for that, and we could try to have you proctored in that area. I've also set up 2 Blackboard Collaborate sessions where you'd have 2 windows open. First, you need a webcam on your computer. Then, in one window, you'd be working on your Blackboard test, and in your other window, you would be on Blackboard Collaborate, doing your test where I could see you over the video. If none of these options work for you, another possibility is remote proctoring, but check with me on that if you need that, because TCC has changed our relationships with some of the vendors that we used to do remote proctoring through, and I would need to get your test scheduled through one of them. The test is open book, open resources. There are 20 multiple choice questions worth 70 points each, and 4 problems worth 340 points each. So it means it's really hard to cheat on the test. Again, I'm more authenticating who's there taking it than I am trying to catch you cheating with it, because really the only things that would be considered cheating would be collaborating with somebody else, which could be somebody else in the room, or contacting people and having them give you answers. Now, you will need to show some kind of ID when you're preparing to take the test. And the test covers chapters 12 through 15, which, as you know, is what we've been studying. Here's the way the point structure is working in the class. The midterm exam is worth 2,750 points. The final exam is worth 2,750 points. The Connect homework, 1,400. The blogs are worth 900. Case study is 2,000 points. And there are a variety of introductory activities. One of them was the syllabus, and one of them was, you had to sign that and return it, or indicate on the discussion board that you understood it. And then the other one was introducing yourself to the class. You have 2 hours to take the test. We talked about the fact that it needs to be proctored. Also, there's a good practice test up now, so I'd encourage you to take that, and you'll see the questions that are very similar to the test questions. The multiple choice questions are not going to be exactly the same, because you'll get feedback right away on the practice test about how you did on multiple choice. But we'll be asking things like significant influence versus controlling influence for investments, and we'll be asking about the equity method. Remember, you don't have to do the consolidation method. You had to learn the other methods. You had to learn available for sale, held to maturity, trading, and the equity method. But you didn't have to learn the consolidation method. You just have to know when it's necessary. and it's necessary if the company you're doing accounting for owns more than 50% of some other business. There's one question on the characteristics of investments categorized as trading securities. There's a question about held to maturity securities versus available for sale securities. And there's also a question about recognizing effective investment revenue from held to maturity. There's a problem dealing, and this is a large 340-point problem, dealing with the proper classification for an investment without significant influence. And you have to do journal entries for this type of a problem. You also have to think about current versus non-current classification for current liabilities and contingencies. We had the case study for Air France KLF where we also thought about their classification of certain things. You have to record or define a loss contingency. So remember, the loss contingency rules will say that in some cases you have to record a journal entry, in some cases you have to disclose. You're basically going to have to know those rules. There's a question where you're going to have to deal with liabilities from advanced collection. That's where you collect something like ticket revenue or gift card revenue in advance, and then it's not really revenue until you actually do your service. There's a question about sales tax and a question about accrued interest. There's a second problem, and you may notice with 4 chapters on the test, there are also 4 problems, one from each chapter. This one's consider facts about a loss contingency and write a short essay about what the company should do with regard to its financial statements. And that means that after you consider any dollar estimate I give you and the likelihood of loss, you could answer what to do about this. By the way, in this class, essays, the Blackboard essay format is used for these. So writing a short essay is fine. If you're ever called on to do journal entries, the spacing and style aren't important, but I do have to know what the debit and the credit is. Bonds and long-term notes. You have to be able to calculate cash paid interest. Remember, that's not necessarily interest expense. You have to know what the difference is between a premium and a discount, and also, be able to figure out kind of the economic influence of each one. There are 2 payment streams associated with bonds. I'll tell you, one of them is the amount that the company has to pay back at the end, and the other one is periodic interest payments. You're going to have to indicate what type of journal entry is necessary at the issuance of the bond for the issuer. And as you read in this chapter and as you've practiced, effective interest method is the method we use to record interest. So this has you amortizing premium and discounts using formula. You will have to do that and use the effective interest method for the first 2 payments. So this is one of those things where using the essay feature on Blackboard, you might not have perfect line in your columns or something like that, but that'll be okay. Chapter 15 deals with leases, and so in one question you're going to have to define an operating lease. In one question you're going to have to define a capital lease. One question will have you define a bargain purchase option or identify the definition there. And then you'll have questions about sales types of leases and the definition of residual value. Your last essay will be to write a short essay about whether a lease has a bargain payment option. So I'm going to give you some facts. You'll have to let me know if it has a bargain payment option and whether the lease is a capital lease or an operating lease. I do want to point out that the test questions, the practice test questions, may or may not look exactly like this study guide. They're going to be very similar to test questions, but the study guide is written for the test itself, not the practice test. Also with the problems, I forget if I mentioned it earlier or not, but when you do the practice test, and I'd suggest you do, the multiple choice is graded immediately by the system. I'll grade the problems when you submit, but when I say grade them, I'm not going to give you a grade. Rather, I'm just going to write back if I think there are big things you need to consider to do better on the test, because these 4 problems are exactly the 4 problems that'll be on the test. Well, take care, and I wish you luck.